Hello, I'm Shelley Moselle, and welcome to Shell Shocked, the podcast. What if we knew then what we know now? How different would our lives be? What if we listened, really listened, to those who have gone before us? Listened to their life lessons. Would that change our journey? I'm collecting interviews with some of the most life-traveled people I know who are here to share their what-ifs. I invite you to learn their lessons with the hopes our stumbles are lessened. I share with you a collection of great teachers. If I knew then what I know now, your new journey begins right now. Hello, we have a very special guest this afternoon. I have Nevena Christi, who is the Bosslady at Rocketbuster Boots. And if you don't know about Rocketbuster Boots and you don't know about boots, so El Paso, Texas has been the boot capital forever, has it not?
Yeah, it's the boot capital of the United States.
Of the United States.
Huge history in cowboy boots. We are a custom shop. So what we do is, what we do in general is different than pretty much almost anybody. But
yeah.
But we've been here 33 years now.
The boots from Rocketbuster are the boots that any cowboy begs to have. So they're an upper end boot. You don't give your trade away.
I would say everyone, CEOs to artists to athletes and
celebrities.
And just a few celebrities, cowboys, you name it, doctors, politicians today.
Politicians.
Yeah, every day, it's a different story every day.
Well, I want to read you a little bit of what Nevena talks about on her website, although I know you can read it yourself. She talks about how they began. Once upon a time, on the edge of Texas, there lived a commercial photographer named Marty Snordham. Now, Marty was an eccentric guy who loved the craftsmanship of vintage objects. He collected vintage cars, jukebox, furniture, and yes, he collected boots.
He met, that's how he got the boot company. He traded a Cadillac, a 53 Cadillac in a bar one night for the boot company because he loved vintage boots and the guy wanted his car and they traded. And Marty he'd been running marathons for a long time and his feet were pretty wide in my opinion. And of course he couldn't find vintage boots to fit him. So he trades the guy the Cadillac for the boot company, wakes up in the morning and says, I want to make vintage boots, but new that'll fit me with all the art and the color and the flowers and the patterns. And he wanted to, because nobody was doing it. There was plenty of plain brown boots out there. And so the first person he called was Roy Rogers. And Roy was like, that's amazing. I'd love to have my boots remade because my feet have changed. So next thing you know, Marty's in Roy's closet. And that's how Rocketbuster was born.
So wait a minute. Did that trade happen in El Paso?
No, it kind of happened. It did. It happened at the old Pershing Inn.
The Pershing Inn. So everyone knows a Pershing Inn who's been around El Paso for any length of time.
When Ray was there and it was just a quiet neighborhood bar, that's where the deal was made. And Marty woke up in the morning, he had 2 sewing machines and 2 employees and a pile of leather. But his mission was to make vintage style boots, and that's what he did. And for the first, 6 or 7 years of the company, he was going gangbusters, having a blast and traveling. I mean, the Japanese loved the boots. Everybody, he was selling to stores all across the country and in Europe and Germany. And by the time I met him, there was a recession and the stores weren't really paying their bills. And we had started dating cross country. I had hired him to make boots for a runway show.
Talk about who you hired him to make boots for.
I was design director at Nicole Miller for 10 years, and we had this crazy idea that we wanted to do cowboy boots with our Asian-themed group. So it was sort of a mixture of, we wanted skin-tight Western shirts and Chinese silks, and it was just a stretch, and boots up to there with dragons and pagodas and peacock feathers, and we drew up all these crazy designs, and we called every boot company in Texas. And the only person that didn't tell us we were insane was Marty. And we said, okay, Nicole's like, I sell a store out in El Paso. Let's fly out there. And we flew out. She went to the store. I went to the boot company and fell madly in love in 5 seconds. And
so that was it? First glance, first touch?
We were finishing each other's sentences. From the second I met him, I just started leaving my purse places. New Yorkers don't do that, by the way.
No.
I would like leave doors unlocked, leave my, miss, you forgot your purse. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It was like I had no brain at all. And we started dating cross country. I was in New York for 2.5 more years, and he would call me and we would meet in the middle of the United States. And he would run a marathon. We'd go junk shopping, and then we'd go back. And 2.5 years later, at Christmas, he said, honey, will you move to Texas? And I'm like, what on earth am I going to do in Texas? And he said, I'll give you the boot company, because basically it wasn't doing so well and photography was paying the bills for the boot company. And he said, you can fix it. You can decide you want to turn the building into a gallery, whatever you want to do. And I, of course, had told all my friends that I was going to Texas to make cowboy boots. So yeah, I do this all the time. You open your big mouth and then you got to make it come true, right?
So a woman in New York working with Nicole Miller decides that she wants to leave and come to El Paso, Texas, so that she can make boots. That would make sense to all of your friends.
Yeah. I worked for Tiffany's for a long time. I also worked for a fashion house called Adrian Bittadini. And then I worked for Nicole. So I'd done textile and I'd done design. I'd done handbags, everything. I went to school for fine art. And I graduated fine art and fashion. So it was really, I'm like, sure, why not? I can sew people watch Project Runway now, but sometimes they even have help. We did everything. I went to Parsons. I graduated Parsons. But I still to this day always have a sewing machine on a table at home, because Marty's like, can't you buy anything and just leave it the way it is?
Oh, no.
I can't.
No, you have to fix it. It has to be
the
right.
way I want it.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. So I was going to make it work no matter what. And like I said, all the stores owed us money that he had been selling, and there was a recession. And here I am calling and saying, hey, we shipped you those boots 3 months ago. Where's, you owe us a check. And they just wouldn't answer the phone. Yet the lady I just made boots for sent cookies to say thank you. I'm like, I want to work for individuals. I don't want to work for stores. I want to be able to use everything to buy the best ingredients possible. I want to shop at the Whole Foods of leather and buy all organic. And I want to make the finest thing. And I don't want somebody else marking up my price. I just want to deal with the customer. And we've been doing that now. I've been doing this 26 years. So we've been doing that now, I would say about 22, 23 years, 100% custom. And every day is great. We had to put out, Christmas is crazy. People get so excited when they get their boots. They have this one-of-a-kind, almost piece of jewelry that's huge, or painting, that everyone sees. And it's a conversation piece, and it's a family heirloom, and it makes them feel special. And that makes me just go home with the biggest smile. I did it.
Well, and it's an heirloom. They're going to wear these boots for the next 30 years.
And pass them down. I encourage people to put messages on the inside, I'm doing 2 different wedding boots right now. There's one where the guy, his wife is a surgeon, and they always send each other the actual heart emoji, the organ, not the little shape.
Okay.
And so we stitched it on the inside of the boots, and it's 2 hearts beat as one. And then I stained it. So there's actual emoji hearts.
I love it.
On the inside. And, it's just so much fun to people are like, I can do that. I'm like, we're starting from scratch. We can do whatever we want. And it's really cool. Okay.
So let's talk to women out there who might look at you and say, success came easy. This was easy for her. She walked into something and it just was sitting there and there was nothing to it. Let's talk to women who think that their vision may never come true. So backtrack a little bit. Tell me what you were as a young girl, what you thought about, and what you wanted to become.
I always wanted to be an artist. And my father was an actor. And, well, my stepfather, but he was my father till I was 17. And he always said that, one, whatever, flaky, artsy career in the family was enough. Mm. So he wanted me to teach art history. I'm like, that's not the same thing.
No.
I mean, all I ever wanted every Christmas, every birthday, art supplies, markers, paper. You could just win my affection by knowing that. Wow. I used to embarrass my mom, everyone saw Barbie. Barbie freaked me out, and there were some very embarrassing moments when I was little. When I would keep the clothes and the furniture and tell her to get rid of the creepy plastic lady.
I got rid of the Barbie?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I was like interior decorator. I don't need the person. I just need the stuff. And but that was what I always wanted to do. So the second that my dad took off, I said to my mom, "Can I go to art school?" And I had just won a partial scholarship in my senior year of high school, and I said I want to go to Paris. And it was actually, believe it or not, I don't know if this will ever happen again, but our money was so good in Paris then. It was 10 francs to the dollar, and we were rich.
Oh, wow.
My girlfriend and I shared, we were in a hotel for 3 months, and it was $8 a night with breakfast and coffee. Good coffee.
To see that again, huh?
Yeah, and it was right across the street from the school, and they kept going, "Why don't those girls have an apartment yet?" I was like, all we have to do is wake up and roll across the street.
Yeah, why would we?
And it was being in Europe was a great experience. It was a really big learning experience as a Californian when you're used to having a house and a lawn and space, and all of a sudden you're in this tiny little place. And it is a city. It's not as harsh as New York. So it was like the starter kit
for you.
So when I transferred to New York, I was still smiling at people as a Californian. I just saw nothing wrong with oh, it's a beautiful day, and you'd smile at someone on the street. And this guy followed me home one day in New York, and he's like, "You smiled at me," and I'm like, "That's a thing."
You're not supposed to.
I'm not okay. Smiling is like an invitation to pick me. So I learned really quickly that you don't look at people on the subway, and all those New Yorker things that you learn. But I think the most important thing that I learned from myself and my friends is that your diploma is one thing, but internships are the most important thing.
Agreed.
And it really doesn't matter how much you get paid. You have to have the drive. I mean, working at Tiffany's, working on my portfolio in the cafeteria, having actual gem designers say, "Hey, you draw? You want to work for me for a day?" And switching around and doing scarves and learning how to do textiles, and then, moving right into it. But I have a friend that took a job as an assistant for one of the editors of one of the magazines, and the pay was something ridiculous, in New York, to be making $5 an hour. And everyone's like, "Why is she doing that?" Oh. I'm like, well, she speaks fluent French. Mm-hmm. They do shoots in Paris. She's very organized. She understands when they want everything done a certain way. And sure enough, you move up the ladder really quickly, but you have to be willing to take that plunge. You have to be willing to do that. And I've been telling my son that for forever. And he just rolls his eyes and gives me the, "Oh, Mom." But you know what? He's got his first job. I call it an internship because it's experience. And it's not just, "Oh, my friends and I want to work in the movies, so we can." But to think what could be even the most bizarre stepping stone for you, or something you could add to your resume.
Tell us about your friend. Where is she right now? The friend that took the internship.
Oh, she ended up as beauty editor at Allure in LA.
There it is.
When they were looking for a beauty editor, she ended up doing that job. And then she moved on to interior design. But it was the same, with me, like working as a temp at Tiffany's and then turning it into a job and then getting a design job, a fashion house where I was always making something. And so then, in New York, they have all these crazy benefits like, oh, we need to make a hat for the Easter parade. And I was always the first person chosen because I always had some crazy project going. I mean, I remember once hand beating a skirt to wear to a really big New York wedding. And it was a houndstooth fabric I found. And I was putting a bone sequin about the size of a dime and a black one on each square. So that it was sequined, yet it was houndstooth. Now, I know you would wear this because I see you wearing it.
You know what I would wear.
I still have it in my closet.
I've seen your closet, by the way. You have an amazing closet. Amazing.
Somebody's going to invite me to a New York style party, more than I can't get rid of all those gowns.
Oh, you can't. And if you do, you need to call me because your closet is bar none an amazing closet with vintage. Oh.
So I wore this skirt, and I'm wearing a 1940s fitted black jacket, the old fitted suits that were so gorgeous, and this little houndstooth skirt, my Donna Karan shoes, and I was going to the wedding, very Park Avenue wedding, and my boss at the time, Adrienne Vittadini, got in the elevator with me, and she's like, "Oh, you look very nice. Where are you going?" And I'm going to this wedding, and she knew who it was, and I came in on Monday morning. And she called everyone in and she said, "Okay, we're putting a new group in the fashion show. It's sequined houndstooth." And she didn't say a thing.
She didn't give you credit?
Nope. And everyone knew because I'd been beating at night. And I mean, it was ridiculous. And so, all that experience, all those things, even the bad things that happen to you, they teach you. That it's not always going to go your way, but everybody knew. And I met Nicole because we had mutual friends, and there would be these New York, there's always huge dinner parties. People are like, "Oh, we're going to a restaurant. It's 14 people." And as a single girl in New York, okay, this is total advice.
Let's have it. That's what we're here for. Total advice.
Okay, what do you do when you're a single girl, not making much money at all? And you're invited to dinner and you don't have a date because in New York, that was sort of the etiquette of your date will pay for you. And my roommate at the time and I figured out that I was always late because you couldn't leave the office until you said goodnight to your boss. And I know that sounds like torture or something you can sue for, but I'm sorry. If you want that job and there's 50 people behind you to take it, you do what they say. Absolutely. You stay there till 9:00 until your boss comes out of the closed door meeting. So you can say, "Good night, I'm leaving." And they would let you take a car service home because it was late. They didn't want anyone to get hurt, but they did want you to be there in case they needed you, even if you're just sitting around. So Devil Wears Prada. It's all
the truth.
true.
It's a true story.
So I go into this restaurant. It was a fancy Chinese restaurant. And we had this huge table. And I sit down, and this woman looks at me, this redheaded lady, and she looks at me, and she's like, "Why are you always late?" I'm like, "Why am I always late?" "Well, I'm sorry. At my job, you can't leave until you say goodnight to your boss, and that's just the way it is." "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a designer for Adrienne Vittadini, and that's the way it is." She said, "Well, you should come work for me." And I'm like, "Well, who are you?" And she said, "I'm Nicole Miller." I'm like, Oh, I've got lots of your stuff. Like, I have this great jacket with the pleated bottom and, I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, no shit.
I mean, Nicole Miller.
And all I remember is that she was the bitchy redhead that I was at this party in the Hamptons and my boyfriend had bought me this really tight dress and it kept creeping up. And I kept pulling it down all night.
The pull.
Yeah. And redheaded chick I didn't know walks up to me and said, "Stop messing with your dress. You look great." And walks away. And I'm like, she is such a
bitch. But you were intrigued by her.
And so, of course, I remembered her. And so then there she is at dinner with my friends and telling me the same thing. So I basically said, okay, well, my portfolio is at this
signed
point
a non-compete.
2 years old. portfolio is 2 years old. So I'm not going to show her stuff I thought was cool 2 years ago.
Right.
But what I had found out is that you could make free Xeroxes at the Vogue, at the Condé Nast Library, where they have every issue. You would get lost there just like I did of Vogue. And they're open on weekends. So I would just go and just start going through magazines and just everything from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So I started this whole book of what I thought was cool.
Okay, that was before Pinterest, because now you have Pinterest boards.
Right, but no, this is Xerox machines. There's no computers. There's none of that. Wow. So I'm just looking through, and I would just go to the copy machine. And so I had this whole section on mod graphics, and then a whole section on, I don't like lace, but I liked crochet, and I thought it was really cool, like the whole 60s crochet, and then like all these different categories. And I had this binder, was giant. And so she's like, well, bring your portfolio. I'm like, I don't have a portfolio, but there's some research I've been doing. She's like, well, bring it with you.
Condé Nast research.
And, well, it was like the history of what I thought was cool.
Right.
And it was like a whole thing on like, do you remember the Avengers and the whole Maud Courage era, like that? And it just, I don't know, all the stuff I was in love with at the time. And I brought it in, I showed it to her, and she said, you're hired. See this closet? That's your office. Clean it out, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm going to Puerto Rico. And I was like, okay. And 10 years later, we were still together. We did the first fashion show together. I mean, my son just found all the videos of all the shows, and he's like, Naomi Campbell, Christi Durlington, like all the big models. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, our first show had all the girls, you know, and I'm a 10-year relationship, and we're still good friends. If I need a dress, she'll hook me up.
You've got a dress coming. Exactly. It'll be here tomorrow. So saying all that, for you to have left the perfect job with all of the people and all of the connections, and then you moved to Texas.
Well, Nicole got pregnant at one point. It was one of those pregnancies where you had to be on the couch. They didn't want you to move because you could go into labor or whatever. And I was bringing the collection back to her house. Like, we were putting it in a car service, getting a fit model, driving down to Soho, doing looks with the models, trying to pick shoes, giving her my music choices. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And you have to get at least like 10 like top tier models and at this much money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm doing all this. And the show happened, that show, and it was a great show. And everyone came backstage, and I was crying. And everyone's like, why are you crying? I'm like, I don't know. And then a friend of mine's like, you're having a nervous breakdown. I'm like, am I?
That's what this is?
I think it's just relief. Like I've been wanting to cry, but now I'm actually crying. And so then I'm like, you know, she's having a kid. Here I am, you know, dating the same. Well, at that point, I hadn't been dating. I just started dating Marty. But like before that, I was with someone for 7 years. For 7 years, and all I had was a drawer. And I was constantly doing whatever they call in Sex and the City, the walk of shame. The walk of shame.
The walk of shame.
In last night's outfit, sort of doctored with a large coat. And it was just like, no, but everyone in New York's career oriented. And I said, well, you know, I want more than that. You know, I don't want to get pregnant tomorrow, but I'd like to have a car.
Yeah, just check it out.
And maybe own some property and maybe be able to travel on my own schedule, you know, whatever. And at that point, and then sure enough, like a year and a half later, Marty says, will you move? And I'm like, you know, I've done this. Nobody's going to give me more money at this point. It's like they're not going to give me part of the company. I'm sort of tapped out salary-wise. I used to go in and ask for a raise because all my friends were making huge amounts of money, but that's because they were moving from job to job to job. And every time they transferred, they'd get a raise. And so I'd go in and say, okay, I really like it here. So just do the right thing because I don't want to go, somewhere else. People are looking for me and they're asking me and I don't want to leave. I like it here. This is my spot. And so they would give me a raise. And it was the way a family should work.
Right.
and there was nothing catty and there were great people and it was a great team. And so, you know, I think that's what I try to create at my place. I mean, I want fun people. If there's a vibe in the room, it affects everybody.
Yes, it does.
If you haven't heard enough, grab a cocktail, and we'll be right back. If you've heard enough, just grab another cocktail. Shell Shocked is available courtesy of Chateau Trois Colline Nissa, a Lebanese Sauvignon Blanc, available at El Paso local Total Wine locations, and by City Magazine, El Paso's only monthly lifestyle magazine celebrating all the good things going on in the city. Learn more at thecitymagazineelp.com. If you heart Shell Shocked, keep listening.
You know, I have a saying, and I say, what do you do if you have a cancer in the room? You aggressively remove it, like you would if you have cancer, and it is the truth. Because it's contagious and it does spread. So I've been at your place and I've seen your vibe, and it's artistic, it's creative, everybody's working, but it's fun, it's energetic.
Silly. Yeah.
It's fun, and there's a giggle and there's a laugh, and I can walk in and you guys are very, very busy, but when I walk in, you guys stand up, you come over and you talk. Yep. It's a contagious space. So you don't manage. You're not the boss lady the way you grew up in the New York atmosphere of being a boss
lady.
Not
at certain jobs. Okay. I mean, the design room, even in New York, it was the design room versus the sales department.
Right.
Now, they lived in the real world. We lived in our world. And the first time I think I got really feisty in a meeting with them, I walked away with Nicole, and she taught me this because she said, don't waste your energy. We're just going to do what we want anyway. Whose name's on the door? I'm like, yours is. That's right. Duh.
Don't waste your energy.
And I'm like, why fight people that are, and I feel the same way. Like and that was a huge lesson, because if people are in your face and giving you grief, and you have to think about, like, am I actually attached to this person? No.
Do I really care what they think?
No. So why am I putting up the effort? Is just making my blood pressure go up. So she would be like, they're the sales department.
We don't care. We're good.
Yeah. And it just, it was sort of, awakening. It was an awakening.
Okay, tell me when I know you'd visited El Paso, but tell me when you came here to live. You came here, you brought all your very fancy clothes with you that you just told us about, and they're still in your closets to this day.
Well, okay, so the fact that I just up and left, that had a lot, what am I going to do? Say, whoops, I made a mistake.
Oh, no, there's no mistakes at this point.
Exactly.
How do you go back?
There's no going back. So I was determined to make it work. And the place was an utter mess because Marty'd been spending most of his time doing photography, because at that point, that's what was paying the bills. And he would say things. I would be like, I could really clean the place faster if we had a stereo. Let's just go to Goodwill and buy like some crap stereo and just blare. I need energetic music. And he's like, there is a stereo. I'm like, no, not anymore. If there was at one point, and it's like he didn't realize that things were walking out the door. And he kept telling me, oh, we have a sample of that boot. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to make it for someone. And I can honestly tell you that I've scoured the entire building and we do not have a sample of that boot.
So they were just robbing him blind?
I think one of the guys running it was giving stuff to people, like girls mostly. And it was just a mess. And it was really, and it's hard to do all that alone, because I would come home and it was like he didn't believe me. And then I was at the studio where we live, at his studio, and there's this nice guy in the middle of the day, and I'm like, don't you have a job? And he's like, yeah, I have a job. I work all night. I'm like, what do you do? And that's Mike, who I think you've met.
I met him.
And Mike's a nurse, and he's like, yeah, I'm neonatal intensive care. I have the night shift and, whatever. And I'm like, well, what time do you wake up? And he's like, noon. Like, do you know how to paint?
There goes your hire.
We started like just this kind of club where he would pick up lunch, we would eat, we would start like just, let's attack that room today. Let's, because you can't really organize. And
you need a clean slate. Like it has to be out to clean slate, put it back in.
I had to make it mine. I had to see what was here, to build, I wanted to build my design room like we had in New York, like, with everything where I knew where it was. And Mike really helped me with that. And we're still friends today. And we still how many days did we live on like 50-cent Taco Bell bean burritos? But we had a blast doing it because we were having fun. And I mean, I remember they weren't sorting the leather. There was just this giant pile of mixed colors in the basement. And I remember wearing like a swim mask and a breathing mask. And it was like, and Mike and I are both like with flashlights, and we're throwing red over there and yellow over here, trying to sort the colors. And then I invented our line of Christmas stockings to use all that scrap. And so it was just this whole like, just make it work.
Okay, so let's talk about this. We'll back up. You talked about the 50-cent tacos. So big change. New York, Texas.
Oh, food.
Food was different. Huge change in food. Huge change of atmosphere of what people were wearing. And you had a budget when you got here that you probably didn't have quite that budget there, but you're on 50-cent tacos. And you know what you've transitioned today. Tell me a starting rate of what one of your very custom boots is today.
Oh, gosh. We do not have anything lower than $1,500 a pair at this point. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, we sold a $15,000 pair of boots the other day. So it's, you know, we're working with Sylvester Stallone and Kelly Wurstler. And, I mean, you never know who's calling these days.
Okay, I've seen people walk in and out of your office. And they're celebrities. They're coming to El Paso specifically to get fitted and to walk into your boot company, which is phenomenal. And it's like taking a step back in time. When you walk in there,
so excited.
It's so exciting. So tell me really quick, the celebrities that you had just kind of walk in. I know they make appointments, but let's just give me a little bit.
First time we made boots for Ethan Hawke, he waited for me for a half an hour because Trip was little and I had to drop him off at daycare, and I get there and I don't remember who was working for me, but they're like, this guy's been waiting for you for a long time. And I walk in and it's Ethan Hawke. They didn't know who it was. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, now is there such a thing as extra embarrassed?
There is. I'm extra embarrassed that I made Ethan wait on me.
And we had Arnold Schwarzenegger here, and he was the one that said, oh, yeah, I'm going to come check on my boots on Thursday. Maybe we can do it. I'm like, next week? He's like, no, tomorrow on the way to Brazil. I didn't know El Paso was on the way to Brazil.
I've never heard of that before.
Knew? And
only for one person is El Paso on the way to Brazil.
And only in El Paso can you have lunch at L&J and tweet that you're going to Rocketbuster, and there can be 100 people there before you are. Mm-hmm. Because they thought there must be traffic. Sure. I'm like, we don't have traffic. I laugh when people here say we have traffic.
Yeah, there's nobody on our street.
I just got back from New York, and I could kiss the ground every time I come home. You know, and the news... we get so many tourists in the shop now for tours and stuff. And the first thing they always say is, El Paso's so pretty. I'm like, yes. Well, and hopefully our real estate prices are staying like just really
decent.
Nice too, because the pictures the press is sending out have got to be like the ugliest picture they could ever take. But in a way, it's a good thing.
The little secret that we have here.
We get, I mean, Waco is like bombarded because of
what's going on?
My gosh. Thing, and we're
the secret.
We're a secret.
We're a secret, and we like it that way.
Oh yeah.
So I've been in your home. You have to share with the audience very quickly how. So her husband, she keeps mentioning the word photography, but he's an amazing photographer. He makes a living in photography. He's not just a photographer.
He's a commercial photographer.
He's commercial.
So, yeah, he does everything from, we have chefs come in and we do cookbooks, and hopefully I don't have to make dinner when I get home because they save some, and they'll do film videos, and he does all sorts of
He's not just a photographer.
Crazy stuff.
But he started somewhere and he got to where he is today. And then you came in and you took over what he traded.
And he was actually, the building you're in is kind of a mixed use office space. And when he bought the Pershing Theater, he had his photography studio, but he also rented offices to people.
Okay, hold on a minute. For the audience to know what the Pershing Theater is, you need to give a little explanation here.
It's a Pueblo Deco movie theater, and the first movie that showed there, which you probably know and I know because of all the glamorous clothes, and cocktails was The Thin Man.
Oh, yes.
And Myrna Loy and William Powell. And he turned it into his home and studio. But when we were dating, he was in a different room every time I come visit. Like once he'd be in the projection room, next time I'm like, the mattress on the floor, the dresser over there, like dorm room style. He's like, well, I'm still trying to decide,
where I'm going to live, where I'm going to create my space.
So while we were dating, I was deciding the whole thing for him. He had no idea.
Can I give, you were designing it the whole time. So I got to give the audience just a little bit and the listeners a little bit of a walkthrough. So the outside clearly looks like a theater.
Yes.
And when you walk in, it clearly looks like a theater.
It's a
and then
lobby.
when you walk into the lobby, it's a theater lobby. And you're in your home. And then when you walk down.
Well, that's the cove, his shooting cove, where the front seats were. And then our original 2-story apartment was behind the screen, and it was all the air conditioning and heating and storage rooms, which he had turned into dark rooms. But then I got pregnant, found out that I needed a baby's room really quickly, and so one dark room became a baby's room, and then the other dark room, digital, came. So then we had a laundry room, which was great. And
a theater. I have to keep reminding people, this is a theater. To this day, it's still, when you walk in, it looks like a theater. Even though you've remodeled the backside.
Well, we can still seat 150 for television
and there
in
we
the
go.
upstairs. And we just went digital with a really fancy projector and screen and everything. So we're starting to work on that again. But when... we used to do it with the old, remember the projectors with 3 different color lights and stuff. And not the old ones.
Not that?
Not the real.
Okay.
It was kind of like those big televisions that had the 3 lights and the big screen. It was all one giant, I don't know, we saw one out in the street the other day. We're like, wow. It was like the original big television. And it was this giant box. But we had a projector that was that same technology with just red, green, blue, whatever, and but now it's digital.
And you'll live there forever. Like, this is your forever home, and why would it not be? So you take 2 artists from different angles. You have a Texas photographer, and you have from California, Europe, and then New York designer, and the mesh of what you got is amazing because it's Rocketbuster to what it is today. National finals. You go to the national finals rodeo, and the who's who of who is in line to meet you. and talk about that for a minute. 10
days of crazy in Vegas in December at Christmas, like right before Christmas. We get our LA clients. Last year I was measuring Tanya Tucker backstage at the Golden Nugget at 2 a.m, and she had all the Carradine brothers with her, who I remember from all the Westerns when I was growing up. And it's crazy. And then doing stuff, it's like Kendrick Lamar. When Kendrick Lamar called, last year I had to fly to deliver those boots at Coachella.
Oh, wow.
And then I had to do his portrait. My fine art came back when I did his portrait for the Rich Spirit video, Boots. And Elena and her graffiti and her amazing, I always say she has fonts living in her head. She did all the lyrics on the inside of the boot. Someday those are going to be at the Met Fashion
exhibit.
Yes,
they will. Absolutely.
And people will be looking inside them. And we did all of his boots with art on the inside and the outside because he's Kendrick Lamar. He's amazing.
Are we allowed to talk about the price of those boots?
I did not go crazy with the price of those boots.
What would they be if you were today designing those boots and you're giving a real hard price?
This was last year, but they'd be $20,000 worth of work. Did I charge him that? No. Was I honored to be asked? Yes.
Absolutely.
Just being able to be cooking dinner and have my son walk in and be like, hey, Mom, did anything cool happen today? Yeah, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff for Kendrick Lamar. And he almost passed out. And then he's like, no. And I'm like, yes. And it was just so cool because, the more I learned about him, the more I appreciated the fact that he wanted to do this.
So we're so honored in El Paso, Texas, to have your art here because that's what it is. It's art.
Aw.
It's nostalgic. It's art. It's
make-
amazing. I would love to make you cry. Women want to know. You have a child and you have a husband and you have a thriving business with celebrities that El Paso doesn't see. We don't have celebrities like that walk through our door. Tell me your priorities in life and tell me when you turn off.
Oh my God. What's the movie? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
Yes.
That's me.
Mhm.
I try to do it all. I'm going to be making dinner the second I get home. I love to cook. I figure cooking washes away my day because the whole day revs me up. So I'm like going a million miles a second. And Marty will tell you the first thing, like, get out of the kitchen. I need my time. I need to just like cook. See, I'm having my wine early, but I have these little Moroccan
of
tea
wine.
glasses and I have my little wine and I cook dinner. And as much as I love on a weekend to have people in my kitchen, not during the week. During the week, I need my hour and I just try to do it all. And, you know, hopefully everybody tells me when.
Enough's enough.
Yeah. And they know that, I mean, I'm obsessive about stuff. You need a friend that'll be like, hey, you're
Enough.
just like,
Yeah.
chill.
Check out. Chill out. Fill your cup back up. I talk about filling cups up every single podcast. So you fill your cup up with cooking and wine in a kitchen.
Yeah. And I can tell when I'm overloaded because I get really OCD when I'm, but I mean, how logical is that? Things are out of control. So you want everything organized in its place.
Somewhere you want everything in order.
Right.
Somewhere.
And so everyone bugs me about the whole make the bed thing. And then that guy did that graduation speech where he told all the young people,
Make your bed.
make your bed.
Make
Because
your
if
bed.
everything else
I knew where
goes
you were
wrong,
going.
first thing in the, you come home and your bed is
Your
made.
bed is made. Nothing else might be in order, but make your bed.
Right. And Marty just sent it to me and he's like, I understand you now because I'm obsessive about making the bed.
I am
Not
too.
just because my dad was kind of a monster, my stepdad, but, and he bounced them off the bed.
Okay, I don't go that far, but I like
No,
my pillows in place and I like my bed made.
Yeah. And well, it's just when I was a kid, there would be an inspection. So, not all the time, but sometimes. But it was highly neurotic, and I have no idea where my mother was when we were getting reprimanded for not making a tight enough bed. But
So tell me, if you're talking to a woman, you're going to talk about where I thought I would have been, where I am today, and where I think I'm going to be tomorrow. And you're talking to a woman who has no hope. She's in a bad space in life. She doesn't see any future for her. Tell me words of wisdom you would give her.
headphones.
Oh my God. Tune out with headphones.
Headphones and audiobooks. When my mom had a stroke and was in the hospital and I was flying to Boston every other week, and running a business, and God knows what people were doing at work, and mistakes would get made, and trying to keep, my relationship together, I couldn't have done it without headphones. Just the best playlist ever. Wake up in the morning, you put it on, and funny audiobooks and fun stories. And I couldn't sleep because how am I going to do this at work? How am I going to take care of my mom? I need to find her a facility. I need to find the doctor for this. And I've got this giant list. And lists are great. But when that list is still going to your head, and I don't believe in taking stuff. I try not to take any kind of medication or pills or whatever.
Me too.
Wine is my only medication when I need it. And but you put on a book of the best voice, a book you've heard, and you fall asleep because you start paying attention to the words. And so I would do that when she was in the hospital, and I'd fall asleep. And I've trained myself now. I can fall asleep. I just put one earphone in, like we were talking.
Yeah. And
just boom, I'm out. And so I didn't put any chemicals in my body that are going to have weird effects or later on. But those were the two things I learned to motivate me when it just seemed like everything was.
Do you have a what if?
A what if?
A what if?
What's a what if?
So sometimes you say, what if my pivot was a different direction?
Oh, no.
No.
I always feel like if you're true to yourself, the path is going to find you.
Mm.
I mean, talk about bizarre. I mean, what led me to where I am was so bizarre. But I mean, my parents getting divorced. Okay, my dad leaving when I was younger. Our house foreclosing. Looking for an apartment for my mom. Ending up meeting this lady that said I should go to Beverly Hills High because they had a great like art program for my senior year, and my aunt lived there. And then I won the Princeton Talent Search. Sally Struthers bought my first painting from the Beverly Hills High Art Show, where I knew no one. I went to prom with a friend from my old high school. Nobody knew me at that school because I'd only been there 1 year. I didn't know any of them. But you know what? The art supplies were free.
Did you always have the confidence you have today?
No. I was a ballet dancer for most of my life.
Wait a minute. I know not this.
You don't know that? You don't know why I've had both feet operated
I do
on?
not know that part of you.
All I did it was like being in the Army. You go to ballet, you go to school, you go back home, you go to ballet, you go to school. Yeah. It's funny because I'm going to my 40th high school reunion with my brother this weekend
Oh, you're
in
going to
California.
have so much fun.
And last time I went to our 20th, everyone's like, "Is that your wife?" He's like, "No, that's my sister." You had a sister?
They didn't even know. You were this quiet
because
little...
I had a bun and pink tights. Who would have known? I mean, his good friends knew because they'd come to the house. But, I mean, the geek power, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Total geek power.
Well, I can tell you this. You walk the streets of El Paso and everyone knows Rocketbuster. You walk the streets in Las Vegas, Nevada, and everyone knows Rocketbuster. I have a feeling that in New York, everyone knows Rocketbuster.
Well, yeah.
So how proud you have to be of where you took this business that was traded?
Yeah. Cadillac for a boot company.
A Cadillac for a boot company. So you never know. You never know what life is going to give you and what rabbit trail we're going to go down. And there are no what ifs for you. You're good. Yeah. You have a husband. You have a son. You have an amazing business. And you know that you can make a phone call back to New York anytime you want to get the cocktail dress of your dreams delivered to you overnight. So I'm a little jealous. I'm actually... I'm going to ask you at some point to say, do you mind reaching out because I have an event and I want to wear something and I'll give it right back to you?
I have some things I've gotten here in El Paso that
are phenomenal.
I went to this estate sale. I have something that floor length,
keep
black
saying it.
Sequin, double-breasted trench coat.
Oh my gosh.
Handmade by someone. But I mean, floor length with heels, floor length.
Okay, I need to see it.
Yeah, I've it's been out, but I love to have people come by and like,
just to look at it.
I need something sort of chinoiserie. I'm like, I happen to have.
Okay, I'm going to your closet and that's it. And I think I have a closet, but it doesn't touch your closet. So we're winding up because my wine is almost done, and that's kind
winding up.
We're winding up because that's how that works with us. Give me your leave behind to women, just a leave behind to women on every level. I believe it's our purpose to pass it forward and to pass the knowledge up and to take women to where up above. That is what we do. Give me a leave behind that you wish that every woman would know now, what they should have known then, but what they can know now.
Well, that you can be your best self, but you got to figure out what that is first.
Fair.
And then you got to listen to the clues because they're there. And only spend time with people that lift you up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to say, Nevena, Christi, Rocketbuster Boots, you are amazing inspiration for women. I was so honored to have you here today. And I'm so honored to kind of office by you again. Because I've missed being across the street from you.
It was such a good break.
It was
to run across the street.
Just come across the street.
I just need 10 minutes in Shelley's world.
Well, I'm honored that you're here. So lucky to have you. And someday I will have those perfect boots that I'm waiting for with the little Chanel logo that you told me I can't have.
Yeah.
Remember when I said I need a Chanel logo and you're like, yeah, you know
You
better.
can get me the license.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I can do that license. But anyway, honor to have you. If you have nothing else to do tonight, get on your little computer and your little blue screen. Look up Rocketbuster Boots. You'll find the story, which is absolutely amazing.
And the Instagram's really fun too.
The Instagram is amazing.
That's what
You're
happens daily.
fabulous on Instagram.
That's what happens daily.
It is one of my highlights. And I'm not a great Instagram, but when I come up and you have a new boot and something you're working on, you're so good about showcasing those people behind you. So Rocketbuster Boots, check out the Instagram. Follow their Instagram. She'd love to have you. You're going to absolutely love what's going on right here in El Paso, Texas, and all the celebrities walking in your door. I love you dearly, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I'm Shelly Moselle, and you've been listening to Shell Shocked. I'm available on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and join me next week. Until next time, kiss this.